you for Wet'suwet'en. Reconciliation, we want land back. Reconciliation, we want land back. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. No pipelines, no consent. No pipelines, no consent. No consent. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho. No, we don't need your injunction.
We don't need your injunction.
We don't
Need your injunction. Way-ah-ho, way-ah-ho.
Colin! Gala!
Gathering everyone close at this time, these Indigenous youth who have occupied the ceremonial entrance of BC Legislature have truths and have a message that we wish to amplify at this time. We have our Gitxsan youth leaders who just recently returned for a meeting within their homelands with their hereditary chiefs, matriarchs, community and peoples who are all rising up, asserting their sovereignty. It is really a thing of great honor to know them at this point in their journey, to have them stand alongside us, and to follow follow their leaders as they fight for our collective future and defend their territories and waters from destruction, and therefore defending our territories and our waters from destruction. So with that, I would like to pass this stick to Gina and Shay and Colin, who can amplify what they witnessed within their territories with their leaders. Thank you.
My name is Shaylin Sampson. I'm Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en. I come from the House of Spoch in the clan of Lachibu. As Takaya mentioned, we just recently returned home yesterday afternoon to this home from our home territories. While we were there, we were asked to speak at an event alongside 3 of the hereditary chiefs of the Gitxsan Nation who were arrested just last week for a blockade on their territories. When that blockade happened and when the arrests started happening at that blockade of our hereditary chiefs, Gitxsan from all over the community showed up to Highway 16, the Highway of Tears, and shut it down until the police released our hereditary leaders. That's an almost unprecedented move to break police protocol like that, because the Gitxsan aren't going to stand down. And while we were there, we got to speak alongside those chiefs, which was a huge honor that we were invited to do that. They invited us home, and they flew us up there to see our families and our leaders. The hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en were also present, and they spoke with us, and they spoke to the people of the Gitxsan Nation, because we've been solidarity with one another. The Gitxsan, they're worked up, they're ready to go, they're ready to throw down. And that's not a secret. So it was an honor to be there, and it honestly felt like it wasn't real to be standing amongst these leaders with names that have been held within our houses since time immemorial. Within our governance structure, they're very powerful to have the ancestors that held those names before them in the room with us while we were there. And so yeah, it was a huge honor, and it's amazing to bring that energy back here and knowing that we have the support of our community, the support of our families, and the support of the Gitxsan Nation. So Hamia.
My name is Gina Mowat. I'm a Frog Clan from the house of Shimwitsin and Lukatsiwis, the Gitxsan Nation. And I was one of the 4 young Gitxsan who were called upon by our chiefs to come up and speak to the people about the work that we've been doing down here. And I just want to say that every one of you here and all the people on the steps, the work we're doing is working. At the meeting with our Simgiget and Sigamanak, our chiefs and our matriarchs, there was a lot of gratitude expressed towards the Wet'suwet'en and the Wet'suwet'en hereditary leadership and people like Frida and Molly, just for all the sacrifices they've made and the sacrifices they've made to wake us all up. And our people are waking up now. And so we just want to thank and send out our gratitude to the Wet'suwet'en for doing that work for us and showing us that our time is now. We have so much work to do still. And our chiefs expressed their commitment to standing with the Wet'suwet'en. And we know that the meetings that went on with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary leadership in Canada, over 3 days of discussion and dialogue, we know that there was no solution to the issue of CGL on their territories because they have said no. And we are going to stand with them until CGL is off their territories. We've heard the message. We've heard from the hereditary chiefs that they don't want that pipeline on their territories. And so we need to stand with them still until that project is canceled. Because we know, and as the Gitxsan, we are recognizing and our chiefs are recognizing that the precedent set of that pipeline going through their territories means that we won't be able to say no to any projects either. And that this issue is so much bigger than a pipeline. This issue is that Canada continues to trample over our rights and our people and our land and our women. And the ceremony that they held when Frida and the others at Unistoten were pulled away was honoring the women who have been taken from our territories and have been murdered. And those RCMP that were there watching them in that territory stay silent when our women go missing, and then they're so ready to just rip our women off the territory and throw them in jail for standing for our lands and standing for the coming generation. How ironic and disgusting that is. And so our people, our people recognize now, and we're starting to realize that the RCMP have never kept us safe, have never taken care of us, and quite the opposite. And that Canada has just done over and over again everything to show us that we mean nothing and that our lives are worthless. So it's time that we take care of each other. And it's time for our people, and our people are starting to wake up, and we see all over Canada, Tyendinaga, out in New Brunswick, Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, here in Victoria and Vancouver, people are starting to say that we as Native people matter. So we're not fighting alone anymore. And what message we heard from the leadership up north was that every single person that's been a part of this movement is significant. And every single person that comes to these steps and supports the Wet'suwet'en and supports us in doing the work we have to do as young Indigenous people, fulfilling our duty. Every single one makes a difference. And that they want to ask people to continue to show up, because if in the last few days, in those 3 days of meetings, they said they made more headway than they have in 20 years, and it's because of the people. It's because we have the power, and Canada and RCMP and the media, they try so hard to show us that we don't have the power, but they're wrong. And everyone here is bearing witness to that. Everyone who's here knows that we've made history, and that what we're doing is making a difference in this battle. And so I just want everyone to recommit themselves right now to continuing to show up here, to show up for the Wet'suwet'en, because we have the power to change where this country is going. And so we spoke to our chiefs and our elders and our community members up north, and we thank them for everything they've done so we could be here. Because this struggle we're fighting is older than us, and it's going to go on beyond us too. And we just show gratitude and thanks to all the people who fought, not just to survive disgusting, horrific colonial policies, but they fought back so we could know who we are, so we could know our laws and our language and how to take care of each other and how to be here. So I just want to say Doyak Siknism to all those people who fought so we could be here, and Tatsaqualis who's here, and Elder Matriarch has been here with us for the 16 days we've been here, and that's why we're here today. And we have to do the work that they've done so the next generation doesn't have to do it. Amia.
Simgigat, Sigirim Hanak, Galkubu Oxid. Don't go anyone Gasima, Ama, Hiluktun. Nila Hawks, why? My name is Nila Hawks. I come from the Giksan Nation, from the house known as Gitluch Limhetwit, of the village of Anspayaks of the Faroweed clan. And I was very fortunate to have been called to our homeland with the sisters of my nation. Because up there, they hold us up high. They look at what we are doing here on this legislature, and it gives them strength. They are inspired here in the colonial heart of this province. We have brought the front line to their doorstep. And they are inspired by the community that we have grown here on these territories. These beautiful territories of the Lekwungen, the Esquimalt, Saitnich. So, we witnessed the speeches of many hereditary chiefs, of the Simgigeth, of the Sigirim Hanak, of the Dineze and the Sakaize, of the Giksan and Wet'suwet'en nations. Our leadership, they all came together when they flew us up north. And so, we spoke to our peoples. We told them what has happened here at this legislature. We told them of our actions, our conviction, our courage and our determination. And we let them know, as the young people, we will never stand down, because everyone before us never stood down. And our leadership, they have made it clear that they will not stand down. And so we heard from Gudinit, our hereditary chief, who's one of the matriarchs of our nation, who was arrested on the territory of Spoch on the railway tracks in New Hazelton. We heard from Spoch, who was arrested on his own territory, where his family is the authority on that Lachiep. We heard from Nemox. We heard from Wimugos. We heard from Frida and Sledo, Molly. We heard from our leaders in the north. And they made it clear that at those discussion tables, this government offered us nothing that we didn't already own. Because from the get-go, the Giksan and Wet'suwet'en have made it clear that we have never ceded our lands, our rights, or our title. And we also heard from my younger brother, Denzel. He was up on the Unistoten Yintaf before these raids took place. And when he was there, after they evicted Coastal GasLink, he was at the man camp and he stayed in a wall tent there. That is where he heard the song. He learned a song from the ancestors, from those lands, from those territories. And that was the song that they were singing during the ceremony when the RCMP came in and tore the Unistoten matriarchs from their homelands, the place where they have lived for tens of thousands of years. We heard how the land speaks to the people and how it gives them strength. We heard the stories of their resilience and the ceremony and how they were not just addressing this pipeline, but hundreds of years of injustice. We heard how at that bridge with those red dresses, they called forth the spirits of their loved ones, the deceased, the missing and murdered women, girls, and 2 spirits. We heard how those dresses danced, even though there was no wind when they sang these songs. When they had this ceremony, that came from a vision. We heard how those dresses danced. So, when we met with our leadership in Gitmax, we heard from them that the Giksan Nation has been waiting for this moment for a long time. After the court cases, after Delgamuukw versus British Columbia, in 1997, this government was given the option to pursue good faith negotiations with our peoples, because it was made clear that British Columbia had never extinguished our rights and title, and that they never had the right to extinguish our rights and title. And so since that time, since 1997, we have seen nothing. We have seen predatory consultation practices. We have seen every effort outside of the judicial system, and especially in conjunction with industry, to erase our rights and title. Because when we won that recognition of our law, of our lands and our authority within a court that is fundamentally racist against Indigenous peoples, against our governance, when we won that recognition, that posed a serious threat to Canada. Because Canada's entire economy is derived from the control of our lands. It's derived from the subjugation of our peoples. It was designed from the get-go to keep us herded on the reserves like cattle in order to access our beautiful and wealthy territories, of which we have protected since time immemorial. And so since 1997, this government, of which John Horgan was involved at that time, they have operated in a way that has been hostile to our governance, that is seek to discriminate, that is seek to indignify, that is seek to ultimately erase our voice. But in recent years, we are seeing a change, because we do not have to rely on their media no longer. We don't have to rely on their statements. We don't have to rely on this institution for the truth. because we, as the people, our communications have become strong, our bonds have become strong all across this nation. You know, with social media, with the many measures that we have taken to get the true story out there, to communicate with one another, to build communities with one another, and to stand up and uphold one another. This poses a serious threat to this country and the status quo. And the Unistoten, who have been the anchor of this movement, they have built up relationships with nations all across this land. There is a reason that so many people come forward to stand with them in this perilous time. That is because they only speak the truth. They are true to who they are. They uphold their values, their laws, their governance, and they refuse to back down. And for all the nations who have faced such similar challenges when confronted with the Canadian government and its strategies to control our territories, they see what is happening in the north, and they realize that this is the time to take a stand, that now is the time to act, because this sets a precedent going forward for all Indigenous peoples across this country, for all non-Indigenous peoples across this country. What we do now will redefine the future of this nation. What we do now will be heard throughout history. That is the reason we cannot compromise. That is the reason we cannot take half measures. That is the reason we have been sitting on these steps, in the wind and in the rain, exposed to the elements, here in the winter in Victoria, which is pretty mild. But there is a reason we are here on this cold concrete, in the face of this institution that is perpetuating horrific violence against our peoples and our lands. And so the Gitxsan hereditary chiefs, when they spoke to these issues, they said, for us younger peoples, they did not want us to live the lives that they had lived, constantly having to fight day in and day out, simply to exist as Gitxsan. And they said they were willing to step up now, because this is the time to act. This is the time to make a change, because they did not want us to have our lives defined by struggle, as it has been for over 150 years on our territories. And so, they have made it clear that they are fully committed to supporting the Wet'suwet'en. On Gitxsan territory, we will not back down. We will not back down! And we heard from the Wet'suwet'en leadership, and they said, it was Namoks who made it clear that in the negotiations that are happening, the government has yet to provide any type of recourse for this ongoing situation, that they have yet to provide any diplomatic solutions. Because when we talk about rights and title, once again we affirm that we have never ceded that, nor our territories, through treaty or any agreements, and that Canada has no legal basis to enforce its laws and its violence on Wet'suwet'en or Gitxsan territories. The rule of law is a sham in this country. And so one thing we have to keep in mind while we are here is that the RCMP and Coastal GasLink are on those territories as we speak. They are doing great harm to those lands. and great harm to the relationships between this country and Wet'suwet'en peoples. And that despite everything that the media has said about this agreement, there has been no resolution regarding Coastal GasLink. And that they were only off those territories for a matter of days. And so, the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs, in meeting with those ministers, that was a show of good faith. That was a show of effort moving towards a solution in this whole situation. And for the Canadian government to return that good faith, they must remove Coastal GasLink and CGL from those territories. And also, for a nation-to-nation discussion to take place, John Horgan and Trudeau must also go up north to meet with our leadership. Because our leaders have been patient for so long. Like what was said before, these meetings over 3 days yielded more progress than 23 years since the Supreme Court decision in 1997, which really shows what the priorities of this government are. So as the people, if we are to continue to hold this government to account, we cannot step down now. We must push even further, because if we can make these meetings happen, despite the non-commitment of this government to resolving this issue in good faith, we can make so much more happen when we shut this country down. So once again, I just want to reiterate that they are watching everything we are doing down here. That they hold you all in high esteem. Because for a very long time, we have had to fight this fight alone. But now, people all across this country are rising up. They're learning the histories. They're learning the truth. They're learning about who we are as Indigenous peoples. We are no longer a paragraph in a textbook. We are a history that extends back to the dawn of time itself. That these relationships are being built. And so, I just want to say thank you to everyone here. Doik Sinism. Because without you, it would be so much harder to hold this government to account. Because they have gotten really good at ignoring us as Indigenous peoples. Here we are, right in their face. And yet, who has come out to meet us? Who has come out for discussions? Who has come out to talk with the leaders, the youth of the countless nations of this land? Instead, they have tried to vilify us, to paint us as dissidents, as protesters, as aggressors. They've tried to make our actions seem violent, when that is not the case. Sure, we may have hurt their feelings by calling them out on genocide. Sure, we may have made them a little late for work. But that pales in comparison to what they are perpetuating in the North. And it should also be made clear that when we were blocking these doorways, they were not entirely distraught. They came out with smiles on their faces. They bowed to us in mocking ways. They ultimately showed disdain for the actions that we were doing here. That is another side of the story that our media has a duty to pick up, because there's lots of footage. There is a lot of footage. And the times when tensions rose, that was directly in response to the police laying hands on the people here. And so, we need to hold this government to account for its narrative, and also the media, and also each other. because we stand here in solidarity with one heart, with one mind, with our courage and our strength, and with our only weapon being our truth and our love. And so, just quickly, I also heard word in regards to some of the student walkouts happening across this country. Apparently, the students walked out of their universities and schools in London, Ontario, and walked right onto the railway tracks. We love to see it. And so, once again, Doyak Sinism, Luantkori, our hearts are full to see everyone here today. And we encourage you to keep coming back, because this is ongoing. CGL and RCMP are still in that territory, and there's a lot of work we have to do. And the more that we come together to share our knowledge, to share our experiences, to share what we've witnessed, and to share the truth behind what is happening on those territories, and who we are as Indigenous peoples, and why we have such a great stake in this, the more powerful we all become together. And we are seeing this happen all across this country. So once again, thank you for the important work that you are all doing. Hamia!
And the